Coming up tonight, Chief of the Christian Council fires back, proving he's never scared to stand on his beliefs regarding access to citizenship of the Bahamas. Plus, the F&M leader is telling the government to stop the PR on the sale of the Grand Lucayan and focus on putting the deal through. And champions of the Dragon, our Jean Joseph has the details on this weekend's Dragon boat racing. Our News Weekend Edition. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Megan Shepard. Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernander hitting back at criticism following his recent comments regarding citizenship legislation. Fernander clarifying that consultation is needed before citizenship legislation is brought to the cabinet. Bethany McDermott reports.
Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernander under fire for saying he thinks the decision to achieve change through legislation without public consultation is the wrong route.
I think it's sad. We live in a society where they believe the church is a puppet. You speak when we want you to speak, you be quiet when you want us to be quiet. And some of the issues, where is the council? Other issues, you're talking too much. We're going to do what God calls for us to do. And we're saying we're going to speak for the voices that cannot be heard.
Following his comments on Local Daily, many slammed Fernander, saying the church's voice is oftentimes silent in serious matters that require its attention. Last week, Attorney General Ryan Pinder said the citizenship bill was a priority on the government's legislative agenda.
The referendums failed because the consultative committees would have said to those people, those persons putting forth the legislation, twice there were some points that were not going to be considered, and because they continued to put forth the referendum with those points, they failed. And so I'm saying that for an AG to say that he's not going to consult and that he's recommending that it go straight to Parliament, that's dangerous.
Fernander says he understands that position has been changed, adding that he's looking forward to consultation on the matter. The equality referendum in 2016, which was shot down by the public, was perceived by some as a do-over of the referendum held in February 2002. It would have adjusted Article 26 of the Constitution so that it would be unconstitutional for Parliament to pass any laws that discriminate based on sex, which was defined as male or female.
We've had a referendum. The nation has spoken. You have to come back to them and convince them why we should go in this next direction. That's all we're saying.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Police continue to investigate the circumstances surrounding the Twilight murder of an adult male believed to be in his early 20s. Another man fatally shot the victim sometime after 4 a.m. Saturday following an altercation outside a nightclub on 6th Terrace, Centerville. According to witnesses, the gunman fled the scene in a pink Nissan March, license plate number AU6488. The potential buyers of the Grand Lucayan Resort in Grand Bahama have asked for an extension for the purchase of the hotel that has been shuttered for years now. And now Free National Movement leader Michael Pintard says the party is hopeful that the deal goes through, as the hotel needs to be sold in order to jumpstart the island's economy.
We want buyers that have adequate resources that they can develop this, and that would be one part of an overall strategy in reviving the tourism industry on the island. We caution the Deputy Prime Minister while in the House of Assembly to stop overselling because he runs the risk of overselling and under-delivering. This request for extension suggests that all of the pieces he suggested are in place are not yet in place.
Pintard says government should spend more time ensuring that the sale is complete.
The hotel, contrary to what was represented in the House of Assembly, is not yet sold.
Nor do they have an agreement.
Nor do they have an agreement. And so we need for them to get the job done and discontinue the PR around this. It creates unrealistic expectations in the Grand Bahama market. And when that hope is dashed, it sends the wrong signal locally and internationally.
The decision on whether the mask mandate will be lifted for children depends solely on how many children will get the pediatric vaccines. That's according to the Prime Minister.
We are hoping there are vaccines for children, and we've been vaccinating children. As soon as we see the demographics of how many children are vaccinated, we too can consider lifting the mask. And I urge again parents to seek to have their children vaccinated so that we can move to lifting the mask. As you quite pointed out, these are suffocating times because of the heat, and we want to see how we could help to ensure that our children are comfortable.
24,000 pediatric Pfizer vaccines arrived in the country in late July and are available for children ages 5 through 11 years old. The Prime Minister reiterated that once schools reopened, vaccines will be available on school campuses.
I'm advised by the Minister of Health that they are going to make vaccinations available at the schools as well. And that is something that he has indicated, so we'll see that rolling out as well.
Still to come on Our News, the F&M celebrates its 30th anniversary since the call to governance. And one MP gives a progress report on his constituency. That's coming up when the Weekend Edition continues. In further celebration of the party's 1992 victory, the Free National Movement hosting a panel discussion at its Mackey Street headquarters on Friday afternoon with 4 of the 1992 standard bearers: Ambassador Alvin Smith, Carl Bethel, Dame Janet Boswick, and Rome Italia Johnson. The women of the group reflecting on their days of serving as political giants and the legacy of their impact.
The mood of FNMs were, and still is, that more than the promotion of the party is the promotion of good governance in the country, and seeking always to do what is best to ensure the attainment of that good governance.
I think it's so important that you examine yourself before you come forward and make certain that this is a journey, a sacrifice that you are prepared to be involved in, not for yourself, but for the building of a nation.
Former Attorney General Carl Bethel reflecting on the fight to win governance. He says the leadership of the Free National Movement was revolutionary.
The principle on which the FNM was founded was that you must have a black-led opposition party to be able to assume government, but you must have your ranks open to all the Hindus. Not a token this one, a token that one, that everybody could compete as equals for office within the party, whether at the constituency level, within the ranks of the party, etc. So the party was fundamentally different.
Leaders from across the region in discussions this past week to decide a regional position for COP27, which will be held in Egypt in November. Prime Minister Philip Davis touting the conference, the first of its kind in the region.
Cautiously optimistic of the outcome of these proceedings. That caution is hoisted primarily because what we could expect or not expect at COP27. Our voices will be loud, our voices will be heard, and I'm certain that we'll come up with a consensus position as to what we would like to do.
He says one of the common issues discussed was the emission of greenhouse gases and its current impact.
There are some what I call legacy issues related to that, and should there be some compensation as a result of that which has gone on, and how we turn that faucet off going forward to ensure that it is limited and find ways of means of what I call draining the tub that holds the gases in the air.
And now we go to the northern side of the country, Bimini and Grand Bahama. In this report, our Italia Hall speaks with the Member of Parliament responsible for West Grand Bahama and Bimini. He is giving a progress report on those two islands and says several initiatives are underway.
Member of Parliament for West Grand Bahama and Bimini, Obi Wilchcombe, says tourist arrivals on the island of Bimini are soaring, and as a result, the upkeep of the island is important. He says urban renewal is in the process of making repairs to the baseball park.
We're now doing some work to ensure that the baseball park is at a high level and we can cause for games to be played again with Nassau and have inter-island play.
And there is also a cleanup program underway.
We believe that we have to make Bimini environment generally consistent with everything else that's going on in Bimini. We want Bimini to be a beautiful place. We have to cause for the garbage collection. We have to clean up the streets. We have to make sure Bimini is looking like the place that is so reputable and one of the greatest attractions that the country has now. We have great Biminites. We want everything in Bimini to be wonderful.
That cleanup program also taking place in West Grand Bahama.
And we've improved the general areas. We've improved the cemeteries. We are making sure that the beachfront on the water side of 8 Mile Rock is a place where you can sit down now and relax and enjoy. Again, all a part of ensuring that we prepare Grand Bahama for what must come. What must come, the tourism development, the hotels that must come to Grand Bahama, the new airport that must come to Grand Bahama, all a part of building the tourism plan.
Reporting for our news, I'm Italia Hall.
When our news comes back from the break, although salary increases for teachers are on the books, it is still unknown as to exactly what increase they will get. Rebecca Chapter number 4 and Columbus Lodge number 16 presents Coconut Grove Youth with back-to-school supplies. Those details when the weekend edition returns. The Prime Minister unable to say just how much money was allocated for salary increases for educators. It was recently revealed that 1,200 members of the Bahamas Educators Managers Union and the Bahamas Educators Counselors and Allied Workers Union will get salary increases over the next 3 years. The move comes as both unions signed new industrial agreements with the government. Union members saying it's the highest increase they've seen.
What we did is we budgeted a lump sum, a global sum, to take care of increases in the whole public service. That includes teacher. I cannot at this time disassociate the amount that's directly due to teachers. But what we did was we assured ourselves that what we made an offer to teachers, that as you would have heard from those that would have signed recently, it was the highest increases I'd ever seen. They commended the manner in which the negotiation took place.
The Education Minister also speaking about upgrades to schools on the Family Islands, which she says are also expected to be completed by August 22nd. Speaking specifically to the Patrick J. Bethel School on Abaco, which suffered severe damage during the passing of Hurricane Dorian, the Education Minister says there are plumbing issues.
Patrick J. Bethel has an issue with it's a plumbing issue, and in fact I just spoke to the contractor who is dealing with that. He's assured me that when school reopens that issue will be resolved.
Columbus Lodge number 16 and Rebecca Chapter number 4, Prince Hall affiliated, treated children of the Coconut Grove area to the tools they need to go back to school with. Urizer Hutchison, worthy matron Rebecca Chapter number 4, tells us about the event.
We are hosting our Back to School initiative, and it's normally an annual event, but due to the pandemic, we couldn't host it over the last 2 years. But it's the return of our Back to School event, and so this one we would have distributed breakfast and bags to the members or residents of the Coconut Grove community.
The event was held yesterday on a property owned by the Lodge and Chapter on 1st Street, Coconut Grove. This initiative was well attended by children of the neighborhood, who received some 175 bags collectively. The group also presented 150 breakfast parcels to residents of the community. Columbus Lodge number 16's Worshipful Master, Sheldon Smith, states how long the annual event has been running.
2005, we just carry on the legacy. We met there going on, and as already mentioned stated, 2 years it wasn't done because of the pandemic. Now we're back in full force, in full swing, and as long as life permits and the Father permits, we'll be doing this on and on continuously.
Son of the soil, Dr. John Thurston Jr. currently resides in Dallas, Texas, where he is a practicing cardiothoracic anesthesiologist. At age 12, he moved to the United States, but says his love for medicine and science was birthed right here in New Providence, particularly as he watched the health challenges affect his loved ones.
When illness hit close to home in terms of my own relatives, that kind of linked my fascination, my interest with a desire to help, a desire to fulfill the humanistic endeavor of helping others. So, it just makes me good every time I can make a difference in the life of a person, or kind of help to prevent a person from dying unnecessarily or unexpectedly.
Dr. Thurston explains exactly what it is that he does.
The term cardiothoracic basically refers to surgical procedures and anesthesia involving the cardiovascular system, but also the thoracic cavity. So we take care of patients undergoing a range of procedures from open heart, cardiopulmonary bypass, open heart, valve replacement or repair procedures, lung resection surgery, all kinds of exotic new procedures being developed with device implantation.
He says that his transition to the United States' medical field was actually quite a smooth one, considering that the medical field is so diverse.
A good proportion of the doctors are foreign born, or somehow have other connections to outside the United States. It's a very diverse field, so that in itself wasn't necessarily a challenge. But being a young person, moving into a different school system, that certainly was a challenge back in those days.
He detailed what it was like on the front lines during the height of the COVID pandemic.
That's the first thing that there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear. I remember for a long period of time, there was not adequate availability of what's called PPE, personal protective equipment, like certain advanced filtration masks and things of that nature. So, but despite that, everyone in the medical establishment, from doctors to nurses, respiratory techs, everyone else put their best foot forward and did everything they could to take care of all the patients. There was a great strain on the system in terms of man hours that people had to work. People were getting burnt out. There were shortages of medicine, shortages of equipment, ventilators, things like that. So it was a very stressful time.
And here's his advice to other young people looking to follow their passion.
Definitely the food. Coming back, was a good opportunity to have all the things I've been missing for years, and the culture, the music, some of the people from my childhood, things like that.
Still to come right after the break, the weather forecast to shape next week's activities just right. And horses attached to the country's Surrey rides are inspected for the first time since getting the okay to go back on the road. That's coming up when our news weekend edition returns. Welcome back to our news. The Surrey industry is back on the road, and so are the Surrey inspectors. The first inspection of the horses since the reopening took place this past week, and our Marlena Leonard was there to get the story.
The Surrey horse industry is back in business, and although its announcement was a surprise for many last week, steps are being taken to make sure the horses that are taking to the streets are in sound condition to work.
As you know, we've been shut down for years, about 2.5 years. So we finally got a break. Thank God for the government and whatever they've done for us. And tourism and the ministry is trying to make some money. Especially the first Thursday of every month. But through the urgency and emergency, we just did it today.
Inspector Percy Grant, shelter manager for the Bahamas Humane Society, tells us why these inspections are important.
They're kicking off the ball right by having an inspection. The Humane Society is here to maintain the welfare of the animals, and we're hoping that the standards are brought up to where we want it to be. And, this is what's going to be happening now.
The inspections involve both the horses and the carriages, with drivers and the horses' owners keeping a close eye on the process. We weren't able to get clear parameters of what the criteria is for the horses, but we were notified after the inspections were complete that all horses were approved for work. Reporting for our news, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Today was a perfect beach day as summer vacation for many winds down. Are we having another perfect beach day tomorrow? Only one way to find out. Let's take a look at the weather forecast over the next few days. And our Jean Joseph has been dragon boating for the past 4 weeks. Today marks the championship. He filed this report.
The Bahamas Chinese Dragon Boat Association's first Dragon Boat Festival drew 17 teams from the Bahamas and abroad who competed during the 2-day event. There were many Bahamian and Chinese cultural displays, but more importantly, the event brings awareness to the fight against breast cancer and the health effects that paddling has been found to bring to survivors and the public at large. The event also symbolizes 25 years of diplomatic ties between China and the Bahamas.
It's events like this that allows us to celebrate things that bring us together in celebration of culture and traditions in safety and comfort.
Jamal Strawn, MP for Nassau Village, who studied at the China Foreign Affairs University, expresses gratitude for the advancements that have come about because of the Chinese-Bahamas ties.
Now, we have seen the technical assistance offered by the People's Republic of China in the greenhouses, in the technical assistance, education, and now, once again, in the bequeathing and the gifting of the Dragon Boat. I would say thank you to the ambassador for having such a visionary charge to bring such an initiative to the Bahamas.
And Her Excellency Dai Ching Lee, Chinese ambassador to the Bahamas, says,
We really hope we can do more to help facilitate the development of this oldest and most popular cultural tradition in China, having a history of more than 2,000 years.
The competition would end with a fierce fight to the wire between the Royal Bahamas Police Force King Tide and the Dragon Conquerors. But when it was all said and done, the Conquerors would take this year's title. Team captain Aaron Shea shares their experience.
It was only by the grace of God. Each prayer we did a better time every single race. It was God stand up, not us.
And while there can only be one champion, the sport is greater than the titles. Dragon Warrior team member Patrick Major invites you to get involved.
Hey, the Chinese Boat Festival, first annual festival. It's amazing. We got into paddling. I'm part of the Rev Dragon Warriors. And I will tell you that this is an amazing time. You can never, ever understand unless you're here.
Dragon boat racing seems to be here to stay and will continue to get people active and draw the Bahamian and Chinese communities together. Reporting for our news, I'm Jean Joseph.
And congratulations to our Warriors for a great effort. Thank you so much for joining us for our News Weekend Edition. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepherd. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.